TalkWalker is a sponsor for this event, and I really just want to thank them very much for stepping forward. The gesture is really appreciated. Many of the people I work for, and I should just explain myself for a moment, I'm in the data collection business. I'm a telephone, internet, face-to-face, some mail data collection company. And at the very beginning of this, Barry had approached me about offering some kind of a data collection clinic. Because while there's an extraordinary amount of talent here, and many of my clients come to this summit, it just seemed that while you all have an incredible amount of analytical skill and ability, much of it depends on what you're looking at, whether or not you can trust those data, whether or not it's collected well. And the intent of this summit, aside from the fear factor, although some people might be here because they embrace 360 degrees of chaos, I could simply do a pirouette and show you what it looks like, but it really is a the thought of constructing a workshop that gave some tips and some how-to in terms of what to do in terms of data collection, especially since my firm really started as only in domestic U.S. My thought was, what do we do in the future with, as our global reach becomes inevitable, people are always looking to you for some level of expertise. And frankly, I've done, one survey in Vietnam. I'm not really, I can't call myself an expert. But in terms of the aspects of our work and the extraordinary expertise at this summit, fear is also a motivator, and my hope is to try and embrace some of that for this. I have, there's my, it's generally me going to work. Our hope, like I say, these halls are filled with experts in measurement. For all the metaphors I can come up with about how we measure, whether or not we're talking about inches and feet and meters, whether we're talking about American and European, clothing sizes. The issues are accuracy, relevance, validity, because I know someone brushed on the concerns of fraudulent data yesterday. Is it actionable? Is it insightful? I've learned a lot at this summit so far, and it's a challenge when you have so much at stake. I mean, we talked about how this saves lives. As a person in the data collection business, I listened to Richard Wergen yesterday. He described this always-on revolution. The always-on revolution, to me, speaks to the fact that people's attention spans are very fragmented. It's not just that people have short attention spans, it's that they have absolutely fragmented attention spans. And if you think about the fact that you're trying to measure that, I'm trying to collect data in the middle of that as well. If someone's on a survey and they're also tweeting and they're also doing, emails, if they're watching TiVo, the idea is that we really don't have a way to filter whether or not people are answering in listening with half of an ear. And for us, the idea is to try and serve our clients with an aspect of what's believable within the data that we've collected, whether or not people have given their full and truthful answers, whether or not they've given their answers to whatever forum in a way that speaks to how they feel at the time, but in the context of the other swirling issues of their lives. I mean, here some people are recording, they're tweeting, they're doing all sorts of processes. So I see the world in a representative way. I have to think about, how do I achieve representativeness? Representativeness to me is sort of a big bowl of M&Ms, and whether or not there's the blue ones and the red ones and the yellow ones and all. And how do I make sure that I'm representing the right section of blue ones while trying to be as efficient as possible to get past the yellow ones or the others? The way I sort of see people, if you want to think about it in a box of balloons, that have different sizes. If you think about that, my intent is to think about whether or not some of the balloons are expanding, some are contracting, so when I talk about fragmented attention spans, I think about the fact that people are not, simply in a lab to be measured, but there's really a composite of material that that you have to filter through in order to get there. It would be easy to measure when people did things one at a time, but that's really not the case. So, my idea is to take you through a day. And the day that involves my colleagues here, Annie Weber, Executive Vice President of GfK Public Affairs and Corporate Communications in North America, and Ansi Krull, Analyst Manager, Nordic Region, O Point, Stockholm, Sweden. So our objective is to take you through a day because I'm taking someone's vision. And I think when I talk about the fact that many of our clients come to this summit, you conceive and think, hand to me, and you put 500 or 600 or 700 people to work around the world as a result of what you do. It's a powerful thing. I'm not sure if you recognize how much of a ripple effect your concepts and your thoughts have in terms of what goes into motion as a result of some of the things that you all do. So in terms of our overview of our workshop, Annie and Ansi are going to help me essentially through the day, because what happens is someone conceives, analyzes, presents me with an issue or a problem, and then I hand off to an analyst, and that's the objective here. So our thoughts are to try and get you through our summit with our workshop with the idea of how to look at your data, how to vet your international vendors, how to look at what your pain points are, what objectives there are. And just so that you know, we ran a survey briefly, which we will keep open. We will resubmit that to the membership, but we really did ask some questions about some of the things that you might be afraid of, whether or not your primary worries were accuracy, and if you think about what we needed to do in order to achieve accuracy and speed, how do we do those things? And the answer is I'm going to hand us off to Annie, who will take you through her part of this workshop, and hopefully we'll be able to achieve our objectives here. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. So again, I'll stand back. I'm Annie Weber from GfK. For those of you who don't know, we're one of the world's 5 largest marketing research firms, full service, every methodology. We have offices in more than 100 countries. So we come at this very agnostically, right? We have a lot of tools at our disposal and also a lot of perspective. So what I was charged with this morning is the task of very big picture, setting the table when you're considering research. What do you think about? How do you go about it? So where do you start? So for a second there, I'm going to leave just the box of crayons up there, and you're going to wonder why I'm starting this with a box of crayons. But I think it's important, based on some of the things that we heard yesterday during the discussions. And of course, I may have been a little sensitive based on what I do, but I could have sworn I heard several people say that research was dull and boring, and it made their eyes roll back in their head, and it often didn't deliver insights, and they were frustrated with it, right? Was I imagining things, right? That was a core theme. And I have to say, my response to that is, if that's what you think you're getting when you're working with either internal or external research partners, you need to ask for more. And if you don't get it, you need to start dating. You need to reach out and talk to some other folks. Because in my experience, the people in research are passionate and creative, and we love coming up with new ideas and solutions. So that's kind of my challenge to you. And if anybody in here really did like those spider charts that we saw yesterday, if that wasn't just faking it, you love research, right? You just don't like some of the chaos that goes on in getting there. And I challenge you to ask your partners and you to think about how to deal with that. So that's kind of my premise here, that in 2014, the research options that we have at our disposal are incredible. And they can do a lot of different things. And I want to stick with the theme that research really is fun and fascinating and flexible. And I hear that from clients all the time. And I think you should go at it in that way. And I also, based on something that David Rockland said and some of the reasons that he invited us to come do this presentation today, is to broaden the way that you think about research and research that supports communications. And if you can learn a little bit more or keep your mind open about all of the different uses of research, you can be a more effective professional for your own firm, for your clients, for what you're doing, because I think knowing what this toolkit is and the broad array will help feed your creativity, help you problem solve, and work more effectively to demand more. So, and I guess, again, what I wanted to say was about thinking about the full array, because a little bit the way we talk about it, it's only measurement after a campaign is in the field or you're trying to test the results of it. But we ask that you also think about research all the way around the communication cycle. For research is such an effective tool for helping you plan and design. I can see they're trying to figure it out. I wonder if there's a button I should push, but I'll stay out of it. For helping you to target audiences, to understand them so you can guide communication campaigns, right? Campaigns. Again, a lot of that research that you heard yesterday about how different audiences feel about brands, and how you can communicate them better and connect with those values, that was research long before a campaign gets started, right? So it's research to inform your strategic communication choices. It's issues monitoring for issues that are affecting your client and the environment within which they're working. It's research, and this happens to be something that we do a lot of, where research itself is the communication vehicle. It's going out in the world as thought leadership and as content, and there's a real art to that, and it can be very powerful. And then obviously finishing off the cycle, doing measurement, reputation, and results, and impacts on the client and the client's business based on the communication campaign. So again, just trying to broaden the concept of how research is thought about to serve communications. Okay, everybody, did I finish off the cycle there, right? Okay, so they admit that it's there, right? Okay, so again, the task that I was set with was to talk a little bit about how you come to a research process to start to sort through the chaos and make it very effective research. And for that, I would say the more prepared that you come to the piece of research or the partner that you're working with, the more effective it will be. And I ask you to come to it thinking about the end. Start about, this is a tip that we found effective, and I know a lot of you have a lot of experience with research, and you have your own ways, but it's also, this is to set the table for everybody. But we find it's very effective to start a piece of research by visualizing the very end of it, the moment you're delivering the results to the client, the moment you're trying to get the press to cover it, the moment it's going in front of the board, whatever it is, to visualize that moment and what is that key headline that you're looking for, because that is such an important North Star to begin to shape out what the research will look like. And then from there, it begins to tell you the things that we need to know. And I thought it was very important yesterday. Ta-da! It was very important yesterday, and again, I'm trying to make sure you see that research is fun. So that's my coloring book theme here. So it's very important that you not just focus on the campaign objectives. And again, I think we heard this a lot yesterday, but you'd be surprised how often people know what they think the research should be about, but when you probe deeply about what are the business objectives, why is the organization undertaking these activities, that this is meant to measure, any of that, folks are often not able to answer. And that is so critical to designing a really effective piece of research. And you have to truly understand where and with whom this research will be used, because different audiences have different criteria for credible research. And critics can try to poke holes in it, whether it's a CFO, whether it's a journalist, whether it's an activist, whoever it is, critics will try to find holes in it. So it's very important that you understand where and with whom the research is going to be used, who it needs to be credible with, so you can really have your research partner or you make all the best decisions. Because there are so many options for how you do the research. There are indeed 360 degrees of chaos, so you really have to know where you're trying to head so you can sketch out something that will get you to that headline and what you're looking for in the end. And it can be quite complex, and I know, many of you are communications professionals. This kind of mapping where you think through all the different stakeholders are, what are all the different issues, what is the influence pattern, so you can really design a piece of research that will achieve the business objectives and the research objectives that are set for it. But it really matters when you decide who you're trying to do the research among, who you're trying to impress, who you're trying to inform, and all of those things. So again, the more you come to the process thinking through these things, you can sort through your data options. So, and just a few of the things, and again, to drive home the point, again, we're trying to broaden the idea about what the research tools are that are at your disposal today beyond obviously important social media measurement, media monitoring, but there is so much else going on out there that can really help advance your clients' objectives and your objectives, to really think about what all the tools are at your disposal. And there are a range of options, a range of crayons you can pull out of the box, but obviously something that we discussed a lot yesterday, you have to know if it's enough to measure possible impressions, or do you indeed need to have some measures of attitudes and actions and outcomes? And this is very important to know. Again, visualizing what that headline needs to be at the end will help you determine what you need to do. And good old survey research is such a powerful component in combination with media monitoring and social media analysis. So again, just to keep that open, that is such a powerful tool. And you have to think about, and I'll run through some of these quickly because again, I know you know a lot about them, but these are the different decisions that you're making. Is passive data, just tracking behavior, going to be enough, or do you need to hear from respondents, from people, your targets, about their thoughts, the whys, their feelings, etc.? And there's many techniques for doing that. Amazing things are going on, as was alluded today, in terms of mobile surveys, catching people in the moment when they're doing activities, in terms of ethnography, in terms of eye tracking. There are amazing tools out there depending on what you're trying to accomplish, but you need to know what you're trying to do and then talk to partners that can help you with some of those kind of tools. And again, know the range of options that you have. So a lot of clients, a lot of our PR clients, when it comes to that strategic communication planning phase, where they're trying to figure out who they're going to communicate to, what they should communicate about, and then even how values are shared across publics or across respondents in different countries, there are syndicated data tools out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't have to be time-consuming. It doesn't have to be expensive. But there are resources out there, such as syndicated tools, that you can buy off the shelf. And obviously, after you've done all of your due diligence, and I think that was something, and we had dinner last night and we're talking about Dr. McNamara's speech, and also the gentleman from Booz Allen, that you want to spend a lot of time already learning what's out there before you go to custom research, before you go to new research. It's a critical part of designing good research. Really scope out what's already been done, what's available off the shelf, what data you can connect, and then and only then, when you know what you need to do that hasn't been done, that's more targeted for you, do you begin thinking about custom research. And again, as we discussed, it's a whole range of populations that you can go after, from general population to business, hard to reach, government officials, all sorts of micro-targeting. And again, you need to know who's most relevant for what you're doing. And you can go easy and accessible and focus on online only, or depending again on the rigor that you need, the audiences that this research has to be credible with, the degree of specificity and accuracy and credibility in a population estimate, you may need to turn to some other sources. Because, right, one of the key things is online tools in general that are not probability-based are not accurate at doing population estimates. They may be good enough, they may be fit to your purpose, but certain research methods deliver different results with different levels of specificity and accuracy. And again, you need to know what you're trying to accomplish so you can talk to the research partner about what method and what approaches really matter. And so questioning can often be qualitative and open-ended. If you're searching, if you want color, if you want emotion, if you're looking for hardcore measurement and things that you can add up, you're looking for more closed-end and quantitative. And again, you need to know the kind of sample that you're looking for, and you need to know whether you're up and ready to be very self-serve because you have a lot of expertise, you can use a lot of tools that are out there, or do you need a firm or a partner that is more full service and very consultative? And I think this becomes very important when you think about how everybody yesterday was so focused on data visualization, right? That is a real skill to take 360 degrees of chaos and turn it into a simple graphic that makes the meaning pop out. And so challenge your research partners when you're choosing them about that very issue. Have them show you how they can display data for you to make it actionable and usable. So again, I know a lot of you know these things, but it's really important when you're planning a big global project, particularly if you're planning to roll it up to have meaning globally, you really think ahead about what regions you're choosing and why, and does it roll up effectively and meaningfully? And does it make sense across regions? Are they too different? Is the data not going to make sense coming together like that? And choose your partners with care for global work. They really do tend to have different areas of expertise and track records around the world. And as you all are well aware, the nuances and the differences globally in what you can ask and how you can ask it and how you analyze the data, because different countries have different patterns in how they even answer closed-ended questions on scales, right? Some countries tend to be very exuberant, such as some of the Hispanic cultures. Some tend to be very reticent, as the Asian cultures can be. And you need to know all these things when you're planning and analyzing. And it does make sense to have a coherent set of end goals that you know that you can tackle across all these countries so you can test and deliver consistent messages. Because at the end of the day, as I just was alluding to, the core thing is that the results both be meaningful within the specific markets, yet yield comparable results across the regions in the world. And this takes thought and planning. So again, the better you know what you're trying to accomplish and you're working with somebody that has that kind of expertise really matters. So when you're going to coordinate, design, and execute, we would suggest that you think globally. The more coherence, we think the more centralized the running of the research can really help, because slight differences in research design method, how results are coded, can make vendor-to-vendor research difficult to align and compare. So it's a really important issue when you're trying to put together a big global study around the world, that you really think about how the data is going to come together. We would suggest that probably the more centralized control, the better. Also, if you're centralized, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel in each country. As I'm sure all of you are aware, we're very aware, sometimes companies choose to have each country work with you independently. And that can be a nightmare because they each want to tailor the questionnaire for themselves, they want to analyze it for themselves, and then when the central company wants to compare and contrast against all of the regions or get one number, it can make it very, very difficult. So you have to really, obviously, when you're doing this kind of global research, not only think about research quality, but the politics that will come into play. And so it can be a very complex process. And we think there is a real benefit in centralized control. It can help deliver more consistent quality that's comparable across regions. And if you have one partner who's managing it, they will accept the responsibility for making all of this happen. If you're marshaling many different vendors, that responsibility will more likely fall to you or the client. And that can be a real challenge for a lot of folks. And then, and this is something obviously this audience knows in spades because of the international focus, but let your research partner police the region-to-region research quality issues, quality and comparability, but you really do need to turn to your local contacts to help ensure the results have impact and meaning locally. As you're well aware, there are things you just can't ask in a country like China. You have to find ways to deal with it, but still maintain comparability. So you really do want to, as we said, try to execute globally, but interpret the data and the questionnaire design locally. Obviously, you need to avoid a Western frame of reference, which can happen very easily, I will admit. We happen to run a lot of global studies out of North America for our public affairs clients, but we work very, very hard, not only by having global expertise on the team, but by working with local partners to make sure that we understand the country context, both in designing the questionnaire and doing the analysis. And again, just reiterating, there are very real limits on what you can ask in a country, not only like China, but in Russia and other places around the world, particularly as you're trying to do more elite research among legislators or business people, et cetera. And it's really important that you know those differences and also the methods that will work. As Paul alluded to, he still does some face-to-face work, so do we, because, for example, if you want to reach legislators in Russia, it's still what you have to do is walk up to the building and try to get in the door. There are lots of things like that that a partner can help you with. And I will hesitate and say, if someone is telling you they can reach billionaire legislators in an online panel in Russia, right? If it sounds too good to be true, if they're telling you that Fortune 500 CEOs are in a panel that they can get to, again, just come at it with a healthy skepticism. I know how many of us are having trouble finishing our emails while we're just here. Not many Fortune CEOs are in panels except under very special circumstances. So sometimes it is going to take a different method, more difficult, more challenging to try to get you what you want. And again, for all of you to keep your focus when you're working with a research partner, keep your focus on what the business and measurement objectives are so that your research partner can deliver on those objectives. And I will go back to what I said. If you're not getting passion and creativity from your partner, please consider looking further. Because I will tell you, there was yesterday, again, there was a lot of talk about how you're not numbers people. But let me tell you my little dirty secret. Neither am I. So I grew up being a writer and a journalist. I have a master's in journalism. But finally, when I was forced, and I do mean forced, to take a statistics class as part of my master's program, I fell in love because I finally saw math, that statistics was storytelling from numbers. That's all it was. And I've made my career not because I'm a sampling expert or even a statistical expert, but I have the ability to look at numbers and see the story. And that's all that you're really looking for and demanding, right? You're looking for all of that 360 degrees of chaos, all that data, all those choices, but somebody who can peer into that chaos, help you sort through it, and help you see the story come out of the numbers. And that's what I think a good partner will do for you. And I challenge you to make sure you find one.
So I get handed a set of challenges, and then my objective is to try and come up with how to execute this. So what did Thomas Jefferson say? On arriving at a town, first thing to do is buy a plan of the town and book, noting its curiosities, walk around the ramparts where there are any, to go to the top of the steeple and have a view of the town and its environs. Or as I like to say, now that I've learned how to negotiate Amsterdam streets and not get hit by a bicycle, I am, just watch where you're going. A lot of good advice there, and I think from my perspective, what when we work with countries, data collection firms around the world, I think about the resources that exist. One of those resources are universities. A lot of the work that's been done is already there. A lot of the work that's been done in sampling has already been accomplished. Some of the thoughts about when I approach embassies to try and understand some of the issues, whether or not they can review questionnaires if it's not, something confidential, objectives are to try and make sure that, things can be executed there in a way that you expect it to be done. If it's stating the obvious that every country is different, food, landscape, culture, and people, I mean, again, just making people aware of that and thoughtful of it as you continue is where it's at for us. But when I look at my clear and concise goals, what I'm trying to do is create a roadmap for myself, for my staff, for people to be able to get to the end of the game. But the first thing I'll ask, if Annie hands a project off to me, is what's the first thing you're going to look at? I want to know when you wake up, when you open up that email, what's the first piece of data you're going to look at? That to me is where everything emanates from, because that will tell me whether or not I'm in a good place or not. There's nothing wrong with stopping and assessing if you think something's wrong, but I think it's important to understand that things, even the best laid plans, can sometimes go awry. Methodology, it is possible to work in different methodologies across different cultures and come up with data that are still readable in some instances, and it depends on country and what the general mode of communications are. From my perspective, I'm a sampling my obsession is in sampling. My obsession is in understanding how do I lift out that representative group, not the first 400, 500, 600 people that happen to cooperate with us, because there's nothing representative about that, there's nothing valid, there's nothing worthwhile about that. To be able to come up with a representative sample requires a little bit of thinking into what it is that you're trying, not just the number of people or interviews that you're trying to accomplish, but the how a country sort of divides itself. How do they stack their own demographics up? How do they qualify? Translations, clearly for us, our thinking is to make sure that when you translate any survey, translate it back for us, translate it back into English, and look at by someone else and look it over to make sure that someone didn't misinterpret something. Keeping watch. If I thought for a minute that everything that I plan out works as well as it can, it doesn't. And if I give you any one piece of advice to take with you after this, it's verification. There are a lot of data collection firms in the world. A lot of them are good, a lot of them are not. If the data are being withheld in any way, there should be no reason why you shouldn't be able to spot check. And spot checking is good enough normally to uncover anything. But the bottom line is that please, one of my greatest frustrations is that in terms of my competing with folks, is that when I put together a pricing, and I generally know how much things will cost in order to get something done, if something is, as Annie pointed out, if it's that much less expensive, there likely is something wrong. Unless someone's come up with a much better method to get from point A to point B, verification of your data is absolute. In terms of your being able to measure, you have to measure something that's worth measuring. We have a vetting document. From our perspective, we like to interview the folks that conduct interviews for us overseas. I want to understand how they think, whether it's just a business to them, whether or not they care about their outcome, what other similar projects have they done, what have they done in when something has come up that they didn't anticipate. How are they going to plan? How are they going to be attentive? What are they, and make sure that they stick to these things. Give them milestones, but let them give them to you. For us, that's how we oversee our vending relationships. From our perspective, if it's a partner that you want to hire again, you should know that usually in the first week or so. Our firm, and I'm happy to share our vetting document if anyone does want to contact us afterwards. We have prepared a vetting document that we use consistently when we're approaching other firms. It's a series of questions about what they do, how they do it, you know, how many people are going to be involved in certain aspects of it, if they've assisted us with the sample methodology, how they've achieved it, you know, prove some degree of methodological representativeness, and understand that you know, the folks who are local will often understand how to get there, but I still have the oversight needs to make sure that it's representative and has some scientific validity before I pass it off to ANSI. And ANSI, would you be kind enough to take us home? And thank you.
When it comes to when you reach the analysis end of things, I want to track back to what Annie said. Keep calm and grab your crayons. You really have to have done all that work and set all the goals and objectives. We need to know what the KPIs are, what target groups, channels. We also work a lot with other type of data, so it could be mapping up digital touch points, so that we have a full landscape of what is it we're going to look at. Once the scene is set, monitoring is so much easier to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier if we have the stage set right. Depending on customer setup, we're using many different types of data. First off, we have all the monitoring. We have all the data that comes in from research, if the customer has done research. So we need to be active in collaborating with a lot of different agencies and firms. It can be SEO data, web traffic, conversion rates, and internal data. Because we want to move into insight and we want to see what effect is communication having for our clients. And I love it when they give us access to sales numbers if that's an important issue for the customer, which it usually is. But it's important to stress the difference between results and effect. Because quite often, I've been on several juries when people compete with their communication projects. And it's not that, well, often we see that they tend to tell us what results they've had, but not what effect the campaign really gave. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's hope that technology will work, because I had the opportunity to bring a customer campaign with me today. And I think that this campaign has had things being said about it, such as the must-see viral, this year's most shared ad, and the best creative commercial. Today, this morning, it actually had over 73 million viewings. So I guess most of the people here probably have seen it. So my plan is for us to first look at the teaser film that less have seen, but I think gives kind of a perspective and sets the stage.
How many horsepower?
It says 540 there, I think.
Got you, yeah.
So they're more powerful than I look like. So with this stunt, we will demonstrate steering precision and directional stability.
Got you. We're gonna drive forward, of course.
No,
Oh,
we will drive backwards. So what will happen is that I will demonstrate on these two model trucks. So the trucks will be placed closely together, and you will be standing on the side mirrors, 1 foot on each mirror.
right.
The trucks will move backwards. After a while, they will slowly separate, and you will perform one of your famous splits with 1 foot on each side mirror.
On each side mirror of each truck.
Yes.
And they're gonna open up.
They're going to open up slowly, so you have plenty of time to perform the split.
Yeah, but wait a second. I mean, if they keep on opening up, I can fall down
Yes.
to the ground.
But
So they have.
after a while, they will stop opening up, and they will keep the distance.
Okay. Thank you, Jan
Yeah,
Inge. Thank
no
you so much.
problem.
It was great.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Let's go and
Yeah,
drive.
let's go.
Okay.
I heard you went to a flamenco bar the other day. Was it good?
Amazing.
I would like to go.
When we'll be finished the shooting, if I'm not dead.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time. We
I get all teary-eyed by this. Actually, when the truck is in the sunset, but it's just because this has been a client of mine for more than 10 years, off and on. I've driven the truck. It's amazing. But the teaser that very few have seen comparing to the actual commercial really shows that this is a campaign that's really well thought through. And of course, you guys want to see him do the split, right? So we're doing that one too.
I've had my ups and downs, my fair share of bumpy roads and heavy winds. That's what made me what I am today. Now I stand here before you. What you see is a body crafted to perfection, a pair of legs engineered to defy the laws of physics, and a mindset to master the most epic of splits.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time. We
It is amazing, isn't it? Hold on, let's do that. Pardon? I don't know how many takes they had. We haven't done this. I mean, we've just measured how well the campaign has done and the effects it's given. So it's not us behind the idea or anything, but it is a true great communication campaign and commercial. The interesting thing, we measure and analyze all the different campaigns that Volvo Trucks are doing, so we compare the campaigns as well. And of course, this stood out. We could see the first couple of hours and days how it was taking off. It went quickly. And the interesting thing, we talked about this a bit yesterday, of course, media picks it up. And all of a sudden, it becomes a lot of data to handle, since we're doing it globally and we do it on all their markets that are crucial to them. So it became both a big monitoring job as well as taking in all the data and finding out what was relevant according to the setup. There were spoofs coming up just days after this was launched. The biggest one is the one with Chuck Norris. His movie has now been viewed right under 23 million times. And because of this being, having its own life, a lot of other both companies and people were doing things on this that also cluttered the data. So it's an interesting case. We can see quite a lot about this campaign, and I cannot tell you that much here because it is something that the client wants to keep to themselves. But I am allowed to say that they are breaking all the sales records with this specific truck, which means that it has given the effect. They're also reaching their goals communication-wise. What those goals are, I'm going to keep to myself. But it's a really interesting case how something, when it goes big and complex, you have to be on your toes to be able to do something and really get the right insights from it. Okay, so picking your partners when it comes to monitoring and analysis. It's a mix of things that you need to keep track of. But of course you want a partner that can give you comprehensive and stable media monitoring. But that also means that you need to know what's the relevant data that you're looking for. So back to the crayons, you need to keep track of that. It's also important, depending on, we use partners to be able to give a global offer to our customers. So it's also important when you pick your monitoring partner to keep track that they have a third-party allowance, so that you're allowed to use their data if you're a different company, because you might have other specialists that wants to go in and analyze the data. You need to have a partner that has strong coding and analysis methods to make sure that they can get all the interesting parts of all this data. And that's not always the simplest thing, so you need to make sure that they have that in place. And I think that just as Annie and Paul has pointed out, you have to look at track records and references and things like that to make sure that they are the right partner for you. Also, of course, they should have great consultants that know communication, both on a strategic and operational level. I have the benefit of having worked on both sides. I've been on the client end of things, and I've been a consultant. And it's important to understand what goes into operational details and what goes on the strategic level, because both are needed. And of course, you need an understanding on media and digital and social media behaviors. The landscape is changing, and it will keep on changing. So have somebody that can understand it and give you the logics and educate if you don't know it yourself. The cultural eye, well, Annie and Paul have talked about that so much that I'm just going to mention it. Client perspective and objectives. If you don't understand what their business objectives are, or all the way through to the campaign, keep on asking questions, because you need to have that to be able to get something good out at the end. You also need to have the courage to be able to say things that might not be what the client wants to hear. Of course, everybody wants to have a success. Doing the epic split analysis is easy. There's so much good news to talk about. But it's hard when you have to tell them that, nah, it's not working. You're not in the right target group. You're not doing the right thing, and your message is not getting across. You still want to keep the client, but you have to be the messenger. So you have to have people that can take that dialogue and discussion with the customers. And of course, they should be good at turning facts into proper insights. And I just want to leave you with that I think we all have to sort of settle with the fact that the landscape of media and communication is going to continue to change. And technology is evolving, so things we're talking about today are not going to be that important maybe next year, because something new has happened, something new has come to the scene. And behaviors are changing on how we consume information and commercials and everything. So we have to keep on our toes and keep to the principles, but it's going to be hard having a set standard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, so hopefully you turn some degree of chaos into something calmer. Like I say, I guess, as while we're all looking for how to measure consistently standards and all, I think the thing that I've learned most is that this is a human enterprise. And as a human enterprise, there are very, very challenging aspects to trying to come up with a standardized way. Again, I think people are a very fragmented attention spans now, and coming up with a method to look at that from one angle is going to be an extreme challenge. It may not, in terms of the pursuit, you may have to still look at it from a qualitative perspective. I thank you all, and I think we have just a couple of minutes left for questions. I don't know if you'd like to come up and join me for this, but if anyone has any questions on any of this, the data collection process, vetting documents, or anything, I think we are happy to answer any questions. Well, there you go. Easy peasy, right? No? Okay. So I do thank you very much, and obviously we understand the technology sometimes doesn't always benefit us, but again, if you do want to reach out, we'll have our vetting document will be available to anyone if you want to reach out to us. Any other questions, please feel free to seek us out. And thank you very much for coming.